So in the last video, I mentioned that all that was really left on the car is brakes and struts. That's really what I need to pass inspection. Brakes don't even really need to be done to pass inspection. They said the ones I have are actually a pass, but if we come over here and look, they're not looking too hot. They look like they might even be the original ones. And so I figured, you know what? Never hurts to put a new set of pads and rotors on a car. Increases the value and just gives you more stopping power, gives you peace of mind. So set of 4 rotors from local parts store. I got a set of pads in that box over there from Rock Auto. If you live in Canada, here's a bit of a hack for you. Rock Auto's got some pretty good prices, but when you're shipping something as heavy as rotors, the shipping kind of gets a little ridiculous. So what I usually do, I buy pads from Rock Auto because it's small box, not a whole lot of weight. Get that shipped here, and then I buy rotors locally. Then you get best of both worlds. Support local, and then you also get the cheap price of pads online. You can get name brand stuff on there too. So then in here, I have struts. Now these are complete strut assemblies. I wanted to just do complete struts so I don't have to worry about potentially having strut tops making noise after I change the struts, like these cars are known to do. These are fairly cheap struts, so I'm not expecting them to last a super long time, but I just needed something for the time being to replace the leaking one because that was a fail in the inspection. And then like I mentioned in my PCV video, when you change your valve cover and your intake to fix the PCV system, usually you end up blowing out the front main seal. This was also from Rock Auto, it cost about $3. This is the front main seal. Very common that it'll go bad or it'll start making noise. So if you have a certain squealing coming from the left, passenger side of the engine, it's probably this front main. So while I'm in there, I have the strut out and the brakes out. I'm gonna change this. Super easy to do once everything's all apart. So all the disassembly on this front corner is complete now. Well, I guess I haven't taken the rotor off, but caliper is off of the bracket. The bracket's sitting over there. Got to pull the pads out and clean up the bracket, lube the pins. Got to pull this rotor off and change it. And then, like I said, while I was in here, I was going to change this crank seal. Literally takes less than 5 minutes once you're in here. I don't know what size socket that's supposed to be. I don't have an inverted Torx big enough, so actually a 14 fits on there pretty snug. Just pulled that off, and then the pulley slides off. It is keyed, and you don't need a puller because it just slides on, so that's nice, but keep in mind where that hole sits, because I think you can flip it 180 degrees, so I don't know if it matters, but make sure that you know where that hole is so that you put it on the same spot. And then yeah, that seal goes in really nice, so you could even just tap it with a hammer. I use the socket to get it just the right depth, and then just slide the pulley back in. Make sure you lubricate the seal a little bit so you don't run it dry. Easy as that. And then you are supposed to torque that bolt, and you are supposed to replace that bolt when you pull it out, but I didn't really feel like doing either of those, so I just sent it home with an impact. So don't tell me that I did it wrong, because I already know. Also, if you've ever changed struts in these cars, you'll know that there's only the one nut at the very top that holds this in the car, which is kind of an interesting design. Uses the same shaft that the main nut uses to compress the coil. So when you are doing struts in these, don't be worried about this one nut that's holding it. You're not going to explode the strut when you take it apart. Just be sure that when you do take it out of the car, you don't take that nut off unless you're compressing the coil, obviously. Now, in my case, I'm changing the whole entire strut, so this doesn't matter to me. This is as much as I need to do, and I can slap the new one in and put the nut back on. So this is completely junk to me. And just like that, this front corner is completely done. I was actually pretty surprised this screw came out with not a whole lot of effort. And one thing I like to do, especially with brakes, is go a little bit liberal on the anti-seize. It'll make the next guy's job a little bit easier, and the key with brakes is lubrication. So I have anti-seize on the sliders, anti-seize in the pins. I put anti-seize on the bolt here. Basically anywhere you can put it on. Just make things easier down the road. And the only thing I don't have hooked up is this sway bar link. As you can see, doesn't exactly line up to the hole, so I'm thinking maybe this is a little bit different on these new shocks compared to the OEM shocks. Or maybe this one, since it's being new, it's like less compressed, right? I don't know if that makes sense, but since I'm doing the same brand strut on the other side, I'll wait until I have that one in, and then the whole sway bar can probably move down so I can get both of them in at the same time. That's my theory anyway, so I'm gonna jump over to the other side and then duplicate everything I just did here. So this side was just as easy as the other side, and like I thought before, the sway bar, I was actually able to lift this side up, and then I could hook this one in, and then when I got around to the other side, the sway bar had already been pushed down from getting this side in, so that side slid in no problem at all, and the sway bar is not bottoming out on anything, and then once there's compression on the suspension, everything will be all good. And then while I was in here, I actually noticed that axle seal is leaking quite a bit. So that's probably gonna end up coming in a future video. I'm just gonna hold off on that for now, but it's looking like it's probably gonna need to be done. So we might do that in a transmission flush while we're at it. So I got the other side all complete. I just got this side all torn apart right now, and it's a good thing I'm doing this because this slider in this side and then one of the sliders in the other side were actually really close to being seized. Took quite a bit of force to get them out, so it's a good thing I took them apart and lubed them up. One thing to note with these calipers, so the caliper bolts onto the two sliders. Now on the top you have a regular bolt, it's a 10 mil. And then on the bottom you have this. I honestly don't know what it is. It looks like some sort of balancer or counterweight or something. and it just works like a regular bolt. Now I believe it's supposed to be a 13mm nut right there, but usually because of rust and other things, they get a little bit rounded off. So I know this probably isn't the right way to do it, but I use vice grips to get it off and tighten it back up because it doesn't need to be super, super tight. So usually that works pretty good. And then the only other thing is this caliper is kind of like the Fords. Now, because this e-brake is also built into the caliper, you can't just compress this like a regular caliper like I did on the front. There is a special tool you can use that goes into the 2 notches on this piston here. But well, I don't have that here, so I actually use a pair of needle nose pliers. If you get it into the 2 notches and then you just spin this, sometimes they take a bit of force to spin, but if you spin it, it'll screw itself back in while also compressing the piston, so you can get new pads in there. So other than that, pretty standard brake job. So I'm going to go ahead, throw the rotor back on and throw this all back together, and that'll complete the brakes on this car. So with the brakes all wrapped up on all 4 corners and the struts done in the front, that pretty much wraps up everything I need to do in this video. Obviously the last step when you do your brakes, you want to obviously check your brake fluid, make sure you're not too full from compressing the pistons or too low still. I was actually a little bit low before I did my brakes, and then I compressed all my pistons, and now I'm just under the max line, which is exactly where you want it because I have brand new pads all the way around. So that is perfect. So with that being said, that's going to do it for this video. And as you can actually see right over there, that is a freshly painted hood for this car. I just picked up the hood, the fenders, and the bumper yesterday from the paint shop. So that's going to be in the next video, so be sure not to miss that. I'm actually getting started on that right away. I don't want these parts sitting around potentially getting damaged, so they're gonna go right on the car right away. Be sure to like, be sure to subscribe, be sure to comment, and be sure to follow the channel's updates because that video is gonna be coming shortly, and then you can finally see what this car is gonna look like when it's all put back together, and hopefully that's the last video of the series. So with that, we're gonna see you guys in the next one.